All right, guys, Coach Joe Micela, Performance One Advanced Sports Training, 2012 Olympic team coach. Today we're going to go over, for a beginner, how would you stagger your warm-up attempts if you're lifting in a first local meet or even your first regional or national meet. Again, these are a base foundation of ideas of how you would approach it. A lot of people just kind of don't really know. They either warm up too fast, they're too slow, and then there's this waiting around period. Again, you did all this training, get to that competition, and then you come up short the day of the competition and you lift your very best. So one of the things we're going to talk about is how do you kind of schedule that time? And now we've already weighed in, we've already ate something, and now it's getting that time, for you to compete. So the big thing is you got to see where you are in the order. Okay, where you are in the lineup. In the sport of Olympic weightlifting, the bar is going to move from the lightest weight up to the heaviest weight. So depending on where you are, and you won't know that until you show up for your session, they'll have it up on a board, it'll be a screen, and it'll have your names, and it'll say, all right, this is the list of order of people. So you'll find that out, and then based off of that, you're going to backtrack off of your time. So right now, we're going to assume that you are anywhere between 5 to 6 to 10 out once the competition, or actually we're going to use the analogy that you're about 20 out before the competition, once it starts, before you actually take your first attempt on the platform. And we're going to say that you're looking to maybe open with, like, say, 100 kilos, and this is the snatch. We know that you want to open 100 kilos, and that's roughly going to be about in the 20s or so, 25, 26 out. So you have some time. So you just did your introduction, they announced your name, and now you're ready to get back and ready to start. So you're going, all right, Coach, when do I start warming up? And what do I do? Well, we know we're that far out. We have time to do some type of general. General warm-up should take anywhere between 5 up to about 15 minutes. Okay, so you're going to go, all right, I know that I'm going to do this general warm-up. That's going to get my blood moving, my mobility, maybe some rehab exercises, prehab exercises. I know that I need to do this routine of exercises to get my body going before I even touch a barbell. So that, again, that could be anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes prior to you even start the barbell. So you have to take that in consideration. If you know your session is starting at 9 o'clock, they did introductions, now it's around 9:10, first lift is going to go. You have to now backtrack your time period from that clock time from this time where you think you're going to be out there. So you have to accommodate to do some type of general. Some people need more, some people need less. If you've had injuries, you need more. If you're older, you need more. If you're younger, you're like, boom, I'm just going to put my shoes on, I'm ready to go. But you want to allow something, okay? You should train like this so that when you're in the gym, when you show up, you just don't just drop your bag off and go. You have to kind of allow some type of general warm-up. This is not including the barbell. Once this is now accomplished, then we're going to do some type of bar progression. Now this, again, this is going to be more art than it is science. It's going to be kind of dependent upon the athlete. So the athlete is going to determine, and their training going into it, how much bar progression. Some people just pick the bar up and they go do an overhead squat and they're good to go. Some people, like in our program, we have a set pattern of exercises that can be anywhere from 3 to up to 8 exercises that you'll do. And that, again, is going to take anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. Some people need it for 2 minutes. Some people need it more. Okay? They want to get that groove going with the bar really good. So again, this is with the snatch. So they have that. So then again, they have to allot for anywhere between 10 minutes up until about 25 minutes before they actually touch the weight. Okay, so you have to allow yourself in the back to warm up and give yourself this. Now with most competitions, both local and national or regional, unfortunately, you're probably going to have to share a platform. Unless you get to the world level, you're going to have to share a platform with somebody. So you have to take into consideration who you pick your platform partner with. It may be someone you know, maybe someone you don't know, okay? And you want to then pick it with someone that is either really close to you in terms of the weights that you're opening with, or someone that's a complete opposite. If I know that I'm the first person to lift, I'm going to be the first person out. My warm-up strategy and timing is going to be almost completely done before the other person even starts with the bar. And same thing for you. If you're the last person you know that is going to be opening up, and then pretty much everyone's going to be done before you got to get going or somewhere towards the end, your warm-up strategy is going to be a little bit different, okay? And we'll save that for another day, but right now we're just going to say worry about you right now. So we know that. So once they've now done that bar progression, and we know that the ultimate result, again, is going to be this 100-kilo opener. So we got to say, all right, depending on the person, this is kind of how would I approach it. It's going to probably be somewhere between about 50 kilos. After they do their bar work, they're going to take 50 kilos in a snatch. Now, this is not a complex. This is not something, they're doing. This is that they're going to do 50 kilos for a set of 3. Now, I'm going to write this out, and then we're going to kind of talk about what they're going to do. Again, this is their ultimate goal, that we're getting to this point. And we've determined, like I said, they're 20-something out, okay? So we backtrack from that 100 kilos. We say, all right, we know they were about 20-something out, okay? So I know that I'm gonna take this now with snatches. I prefer to take anywhere between 2 to 3 attempts that happen on the platform. I'm gonna take a lift. I like to have, in the snatches, because you can recover fairly quickly from that, I'd rather it be more like 2. So we're gonna use 2 as our number, okay? So we know that within 2 to 3 out, I'm gonna take this 95, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, okay? These are attempts outs. So if I know that I'm in the 20 plus range, if I am 25 out, that once the competition starts, well, I said I'm not taking 50 till about 16, give or take 18 out. That means that'll allow me enough time to get this done. So that means I can go out for introductions. I can come back within that 10-minute period of time. I could probably get majority of this stuff done, okay? If not, I already started some of the general warm-up before we went out there for intros. We came back, it's not truly 10 minutes anymore. It's more like 8:50, depending on how long the announcer took to announce everybody's name. But I know that I could probably get all of this done right before I go out for the intros, and then definitely when I come back for the intros. So that when this competition then starts, I have this time. I go, all right, well then, I said it was 20-something out, 25 out. I can kind of wait and see what happens. How many of them are 2-minute clocks? How many, where am I at? Somebody bumps. My 25 just dropped down to 22, dropped down to 23, dropped down to 20. So I allow myself that flexibility of when I can ramp it up. Say I'm warming up and all of a sudden this 50 starts looking like dog crap. Well, now 50 just turned into, let's add another one, okay? So now we just added another one because it didn't look that good. In any of these sequences, if any of these don't look good, you have to allow a budget of time to do it again. That's why sometimes 3 is a little bit better because it gives you that little breather. But what we try to do is now we've taken 50 at 16. Now we're waiting to see what happens on the platform. 2 lifts go. Now we're at 14. Well, 14, I get my athlete up, tell him to take this 50. As a coach, I'm looking at the board, I'm looking at his competitors or her competitors, and I'm looking at what my athlete looks like. What's their mindset? Are they progressively getting more sharp? Are they sharp from the very beginning? They look lethargic. They look flat. You know, was the weight cut too much? You know, are they just mentally scared? Like, what is going on? And then I'm also looking at their competitors. Little Susie over there is supposed to open with 100, and she's just missed 80 in the back 3 times. Well, she don't look too good, okay? Or she's supposed to be opening with 100 and she just put 105 on the bar in the back and just smoked it. She's probably not staying that, so something's gonna change with my attempts. So you're constantly observing all this information, okay? As a coach. And as a lifter, your main goal is to make sure you make each one of these look crisp, okay? So again, you're gonna have a little higher volume in the beginning to make you feel good, to grease that track. We don't want it to be too much, then now you're exhausting yourself. This is not a full-on workout per se. This is to get you to this point of how warm can I get taking jumps in an appropriate manner so that I am ready mentally and technically dialed in to make my opener. I have no problem with beginners also taking that 100 in the back and then still opening with it. Okay, now I don't do that with more advanced people, but with a beginner, there's nothing wrong with taking that in the back. Now, but what you have to do is now take that into consideration when you're doing your attempts, and now know that. You have to take that into consideration. Also, too, if you do miss something around here and you have this scenario, we always say there's 3 scenarios that you have when you're going into a competition. You have one, is your ideal, okay, plan. Number 2 is better. Number 3 is, oh shit, okay, scenario. Ideal scenario is that basically this is what you've been talking about doing, this is what you want to do. We want to open with 100 and we want to do it. Better than ideal is like, you know that in the back of your head, you eventually want to get to 110 or 115, and you're going like, this kid just looks freaking amazing. Now, this is where you can get in trouble, because coaches and even athletes can go, man, I just feel like I'm on fire right now. I think I can open up heavier. I can open up heavier. And they look amazing up to this point, so you go, screw that. We're going to 105, we're going to go 10, and then we're going to go 15. For that third, because he just looks great. She just looks great. And then what happens, they go out there and then they miss the opener. Because in our previous video, we said, hey, we want to make sure that this number is what? 15 times you've made it leading up to that 8 weeks going into that competition. Well, we just got, as a coach and the athlete, you just got like engulfed in the moment of the energy, and now they really only made this less than 5 times. Maybe they only tried it once, 2 or 3 times. But you did 100, you did it 15 times. But you got sucked into it as a coach. You got sucked into it too, and you let the athlete talk you into it. And you said, well, let's just move them up. Sometimes it works. Don't get me wrong. But the newbie, younger athlete, don't do it. Don't get sucked into it. So this can get crazy. Then you got the oh shit scenario where you get to here and they miss. Okay? They're missing like crazy. They've missed this twice, or even they missed what they were supposed to do in the back couple times. Now you're in this like oh shit scenario where you go, do we stay with the opener that we predicted, or is there an opportunity that we can drop them down? Okay, if you're lucky, you can drop them down in enough time to now take something lighter so you don't have them bomb out or be in a compromised situation. Sometimes you don't have that luck and you just have to roll with it. Now you're doing your best, Mr. Miyagi mind trick to basically say, hey, let's talk this kid into making that opener. But you also have it, like I said, they feel weird, they don't feel right, and they're just not looking good in their last couple openers. You have to have that point of no return that somewhere within these last couple sets they go, and based off of what the weight is on the bar, we go, listen, this is our point of no return. They got to look spot on by this number, 1, 2, last 2 attempts out, and I can't change. Or if anything goes crazy, I can still change them, but I have to see what they can do with that. And again, that's going to be a percentage that is in that 90% plus range. We talked about that in the previous video. That's why having multiple attempts at percentages above 90% more often leading into the competition is going to be more beneficial to you as the athlete for confidence, but also as the coach for confidence, and know that this athlete can make that number because they've made it. They've attempted it and made it a majority of times, 15 times, 20 times. You go, all right, they've made it enough times that they have now this reserve memory of making it. So versus I made it once, I attempted it 3 times, I missed it 2 other times, and they were spread out 6 weeks apart from each other. When it push comes to shove, are you going to bank on the 1 time, or are you going to bank on the 15 times? I'd rather bank on the 15 times. So again, we're systematically, do you want to do a bunch of triples or doubles leading into that? Again, it may be up to you. If the kid trains like that, then great. These could be doubles all the way up. I've had people that'll do multiple sets leading up. I don't prefer that. I want to get by with the least amount that they need to do in that scenario. So another scenario comes up. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year's. They made their opener, okay? We made our opener of 105, okay? Now we put in 110 as their second attempt. So between the second attempt, we realized that they're 8 out between their first and second attempt. Now, on average, that could be anywhere between 5 minutes. That could be 15 minutes. Say everyone, goes out there, uses their full clock of 1 minute before it gets to you, you're sitting there for at least 8 minutes. Again, that's not including everybody changing their weights, the whole 9 yards. Then you got a couple 2-minute clocks in there, okay? And they're gonna suck that bad boy down to the last couple seconds. So you got 2 in there, plus that. Well, now that just became 12 minutes. In the sport of weightlifting, again, unless you're a person that's used to sitting very long time, and I'm not a big fan of it with snatches, clean and jerk's a little different story, we may have to do something in between that first and second attempt. Now this where again comes into your personal philosophy. What do we take in between that 105 and that 110? One school of thought is you take at least what you just did. So, and when would we take that? Anywhere between 3 to 4 out. The other school of thought is you would take something lighter and just work on just moving it around. And maybe you take 90, but you take it as a power snatch to save their legs, save them up. I'm not a huge fan of this just because now you're changing motor patterns. They're thinking power, they're thinking full, they're thinking power. I'd rather them stay as close to that number, that next number that they're going to take. Why? Because then they have to be engaged. If you've been doing what we said in previous videos, that you're used to training at higher percentages consecutively, you should be in shape for it. Now, if you're not, you may have to go do something else like the 90. The other school of thought, and I'm not a fan of it with snatches, is maybe you snatch pull 110, also at 3 or 4 out. Just that they're tensing their body, they're feeling something, they're feeling that weight they're about to do, but they're not completing the lift. Again, if you've trained like that, it's one thing. I also don't like doing that a ton of times. I have done it in the past. I'd rather them take a lift, especially when it comes to the snatch, okay? So we did it. We did the 105, boom, they made it. Now we're at that 3 to 4, they rest, they go out, boom, they nail it again, okay? So now we're great. We're 2 for 2. We're in the driver's seat. And now all of a sudden we're in a situation going into that, or 110, we made the 110, excuse me. And now I go 115. He was the last person to take, or she was the last person to take the 10. Now they're on a 2-minute clock. So now they went from like having this longer rest period to now like, boom, you're right back up or within a 2-minute clock because you're the only one taking that. So now you have to get them mentally ready that they can handle now long weights, short weights, and in that process. So you have to be prepared for that, you know, like I said. So now what do? You sit, okay? You just came off, you regroup mentally, get them dialed back in and saying, all right, we're gonna go right back out there. So that's why it's imperative in training to practice fast and slow paces. Sometimes I do that. Well, coach, you said 2 minutes and now to wait, and now you're telling me to go with 45 seconds. I'm like, yeah, get your freaking ass up and go. And they get confused, and I'm like, it's to prepare you for the unexpected. I told you one thing, but now something else has changed. Prepare for that. And then you see a kid pacing, they're ready to go. I was like, sit your ass down. I'm ready to go now. Well, you gotta sit your ass down. No, I'm ready to go now. No, sit your ass down for 3 minutes. Learn to be in that moment and control the up and down. I think that's the hardest thing for an athlete who goes from a recreational weightlifter to now a competitor, whether it's your first competition to a senior level competition, is learning that patience and learning how to dial it up and stay there and dial it back down. You know, we had one guy who was training for the World Championships. He wasn't my personal athlete. I was helping coaching him at the World Championships one year. And he's like, hey, due to my schedule, my whole workout has to be done in an hour and 15 minutes. And we got to his session at the Worlds that year, and his snatches alone took almost an hour. Not him personally, but the whole session. He was mentally checked out before we got to the clean and jerk. He's like, I'm not used to waiting this long. You know, I'm used to being completely done in and out. He had like something like a 20-minute wait in between each snatch, okay? And he was just like, I can't stay up. I can't mentally stay up for this. He was just like drained, you know? And I said, well, one, your coach should have prepared you better for that scenario to potentially happen. And if not, now you got to learn it. You know, you have to learn for that scenario. Versus somebody else who's used to taking super long breaks. They're used to walking around, getting a drink of water, 15 minutes goes by, then they come back and do a lift. And they get in a competition and it's like, hey, you're up, boom, you're up, boom, you're up, boom. It's like, what's going on? I was a big fish in, you know, my little gym. Now I get to this national competition and everyone's out lifting me and I'm following myself on all these lifts. Or I'm sandwiched in with everybody else and all these attempts are like boom, 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 boom. I don't have a lot of time to rest. Yep, you don't. Because the way the jumps are in there, you have to understand that. That's where your homework comes in. Okay, you're not gonna always have it at a local meet, but when you're at a national meet, you gotta do some homework. You see it far enough in advance, you go, hey, I know I'm gonna mix with people that are 8 people that are all doing the same thing as me. I know that I'm the only one taking these weights, whether you're in the beginning or the end, I have to prepare for that. I have to prepare to go off of a clock versus attempts out. So we say we get this same scenario, everything is the same except you being 25 out, you're 2. So now we have the exact same scenario. They're opening with 105 kilos, but instead of being 25 out, you're 2 attempts out. So that means as soon as the competition starts, well, you just said you're 2 out is usually your 2 to 3 out is when you're going to take your last one. So now you're going, well, what do I do now? I can't count anything. Well, what do we do count? We count time. Okay, so we still know that these parameters still apply. We know what time is that we're starting this competition at 9. We do intros at 9. Basically, the first person is going to lift at 9:10. So there's 2 people going to go at that time period, and then we backtrack off of that. So that we know within that time period, if we know this is 2, so maybe we take this, I would say now, all right, during that 10-minute time clock, I'm gonna look at certain things. So I may do this. I may say a minute and a half off of that, 3 minutes, 4:30, 6, 7:30. I didn't get back, we went out there for the intros, so I'm somewhere coming back around here. So this is going to be before the intros at like 8:55 or something like that, 8:52, 8:50. And then now we go back off of this and go, all right, I have to have all my bar work done before this time. So maybe by 8:45, 8:47, I have to have my bar work done. And somewhere I have to get all my general stuff in. But I have to start it in the 8:30 range, if not sooner. So now you go backtrack and you go, all right, I have to get all this stuff done at time at the end of the regulation of the 10-minute clock. I know I take that 100 and then I'm at least then seeing what happens. Somebody goes out, he misses or he bumps, I at least allow a little wiggle room. Sometimes you may take it maybe a minute or two before the end of time, so you can have that as well, okay? So again, if you're basing it off of time, that's how you would approach it. And it may be a split. It may be some time and some attempts. And again, that's where you just have to, like, again, this is not an exact. It may be 4 minutes versus 4:30. It may be 10 versus this. You just have to kind of feel it out. There's positives and negatives. There's positives this, that it's controlled by, in one way, it's a fixed situation. You know that the time is going to go in one direction. You can very appropriately set everything up. When you get to attempts out, even though it says 4 out, well, you could have misses in there, and misses still put you at 4 out, even though time has elapsed. Okay, so you're going, all right, I counted that I would be 4 out, but I've been sitting here for the last 5 minutes, and it's still 4 out. So you have to take that into consideration, that I account a 2-minute clock is equal to 1 attempt. So if you know that you have 2 2-minute clocks ahead of you, that you could predict, hey, this person is taking a weight, and unless they jump 20 kilos, they're going to follow themselves. So if I know that I have at least someone with a 2-minute clock in there, I'm going to count that as an attempt when I'm counting my numbers. So if it says on paper 8 out, but I know that within that 8 there's potential for 2 2-minute clocks, in reality it's going to be like a 10 out. So I'm going to count 10 out. And again, but that's also where you just don't count once and you walk away and never come back to the board. As a coach, you're constantly doing that. You're looking at the board, you're looking around the room, you're looking at your athlete, you're doing all these things. You have to keep all those things in check. And we'll have that on another day. We talk about responsibilities of, if you're 1 coach, 2 coach, or 3 coaches out there, what their responsibilities and their roles should be in a competition. But at a local competition, it's probably maybe just you, maybe you got 1 other person, but someone's got to be looking at the board, someone else has to be looking at to see what's going on with this. So you can make sure that athlete is prepared. Not too fast, but not too long. You don't want to be warming up for 2 hours, for their session, knowing they're the last person in the group, and you started warming up half an hour before everyone started. They could burn them out. Oh, by the way, this is snatches, and we have to do this all over again for the clean and jerks. So in the back of your head as a coach, you always have to take that in consideration. Did they train for this? Are they in shape for this? That there's a finite amount of attempts that you want them to do, that they're warmed up, and then they're now spent on the back end on the clean and jerk. You got to take that in consideration. Did they cut weight? How many attempts are in between attempts? If I add like an in-between here, I add an in-between here, I add an in-between here, I add an in-between here, that adds up. And then, oh, by the way, they got a clean and jerk. Well, we'll go over another day when we go over the clean and jerks and how they differ slightly from this as well. If you guys have any other questions, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Take care.